These are these are some warm up things that are good on trombone. I play them uh, just I only tongue the first note, and then the rest of it is just straight breath. There's nothing getting in the way. So my focus is actually on maintaining that strong movement of air throughout the entire phrase. So in warming up, uh, what you're really doing is getting your body and your mind ready. You're getting into a new space. You're getting into a head space and a body space for music making. That's what warming up is for. So you don't have to play the same thing every time that you warm up. Uh, the thing that I'm doing today is it's just something that I'm not going to say I invented it. It's too simple to be an invention. Um, it can be done in the other direction too. So you're warming up your focusing capacity. Warming up my lips and warming up my arms, my breathing, and especially my focusing capacity. I'm focusing on the tone, the sound that the instrument is making. And the more I achieve a state of being warmed up, the more that sound it's in line with the conception of sound that is something that you just have. That's a gift from the universe. The whole all the forces of the entire universe. Everything is just energy. Um, and that energy is where the music comes from. And so, if you've ever wondered why seemingly everyone is able to think music, even people who are non-musicians, they can have music sort of retained in their mind, and I don't think that this is just simply memory, because if you could write it off so easily as being memory, then those same people who have songs that play over and over in their heads, but or not musicians, they would also have eidetic memory for other things that they wanted to remember, like books and um, test subject questions and things like that, where you actually would be better served by having eidetic memory. And yet music seems to just reach people on this level. And that's because music is not really a thought, and it isn't really coming from you. It's something that has been there all along. It's before we were here, music was here, and after we're gone, it will still be there. So as I warm up, I get more in tune with that. And then the conception of the sound sort of blends with the actual sound that's coming out of the horn. Then I find myself to be in sync with that musical source. So as my tonal concept gets in sync, I'll start to do things that require a little more complicated execution, things that involve tonguing and heavier flexibility. Depending on what I'm going to be asked to do, what kind of gig I'm playing, I'll warm up in different ways. If I'm playing something that's very classical, then I'll warm up in a sort of straight kind of classical way. I'll do warm-ups that I learned from my classical teachers. If I'm playing my music, then I'll warm up on music that is conceived primarily by me. And so the warm-up is really getting from point A to point B, whereas point A is like, okay, I'm not even playing, and maybe my mind is on something else, and maybe my body is at rest. And point B is where you're just in it. You are in it. You're 100% focused on this musical conception. You are going to become a transmitter of something, that's pretty deep, where the music is coming from. As I say, the whole energy source of the universe is just going to resonate through you, come out there. And that requires some, getting into the proper state in order to make that happen. So we're just about warmed up now. I'm going to do a tune. This is Janine. I think it's Duke Pearson, Janine. That was Janine, Duke Pearson tune, Janine. I'm not sure if it's been made famous. It was famous when I was first in New York. It was one of the tunes that everyone played at all the jam sessions at like the Blue Note or Visiones, which maybe doesn't exist anymore, or Smalls, which does exist still. And I'd say that maybe the definitive versions are going to be like Wes Montgomery's version. Although I know in the real book it says Gene Ammons, but the Gene Ammons version is, I don't think it's quite as popular. I'd say the Wes Montgomery version is probably the most known, and it's the one that seems to just swing the hardest, you know. Janine. So going into the warm up is pretty self-explanatory, and then as you get into your actual playing of the music, then what are you going to focus on at that point? Is it going to be about you and these feelings of, oh, what if I screw up? What if I don't play the right notes? What if someone is listening and analyzing every note that I play? All of that stuff could happen, and it does happen in some cases with some musicians where everything that you play is going to be scrutinized in some way, if it's a performance or a recording or something. But that kind of focus where you're just thinking about yourself is not helpful in this process. It's not going to get you any closer to the conception that I'm referring to, where the music is respected and revered as this, wonderful universal source of energy that is just there. As musicians, it's like a sacred duty. We have a sacred duty as musicians to allow ourselves to be used by that, to become a temple of that energy. And the great musicians all knew that, although probably not very many of them spoke in those terms. It wasn't necessary for them to speak in those terms, but when you listen to them play, you can hear it. Perhaps we have lost touch with this. There is a great deal of emphasis being placed on instrumental proficiency nowadays, and on impressing people, impressing your peer group especially, with just how complex you can make something, or just how and maybe in the case of brass instruments, just how fast you can play, or how high you can, how high your range is. And that stuff it's all part of this landscape. It cannot be discounted. You still have to be able to play at all the tempos that are going to be dictated to you by the music that's in you. And you're still going to have to play the complete range of music that is available to your concept. And if that's much higher than your physical ability, then clearly you're going to have to do some exercises. And well, I've got a lot of those to offer you. There is a course of study that I'm in the midst of creating, and I've already got a few chapters of it online, which you can rent. It's cheap, it's like $1 or $2, and you get to rent it for a month, and you basically just play along with me. Pretty simple concept in the exercises, and will increase your range if you do them on a regular basis, every other day or something. And you can just play along with me until you get tired and then shut the thing off. That's how I envision these. So it doesn't really, it's not a mystery or anything. You just kind of do it. And if you have enough dedication, then you're definitely going to get there, which is the case with anything that we do, So as musicians, when we choose to just serve the music, then it's an understood concept that along with that comes sort of a lifelong dedication to it. And that means keeping your body in good shape. That means, doing your daily practice. And I was going to sort of talk about rewards, but I don't really like that because it almost makes it sound like there is some golden pot, the pot of gold that you get, something you get from serving the music. But I don't know whether there is something like that or not. I only know that the presence of the music itself is, to me, it's its own gift. So, as long as it's in you, and I assume that it is because you're a musician. So, as long as it's in you, then that's gift enough. Let's move on to I'm going to do a Christmas song. We went through the whole Christmas season, and I played this song in my practice, but we didn't do it with my band. But I'm going to do it for you, even though it's already after New Year's. This is White Christmas. That was White Christmas. Let me just make sure of this, but I think it's Irving Berlin. Yeah. Irving Berlin, 1942. White Christmas. Song that was, immortalized by Bing Crosby. And Charlie Parker played it, and for some reason I thought that Cannonball played it, but I can't find that anywhere, so there you go. The White Christmas by Irving Berlin. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So we had an interesting year, 2016, and now going into 2017. It feels around the same to me. There was a pretty nice kind of chill vibe on the morning of New Year's Day. That was something I hadn't really experienced in a while. It seems that there's a lot of kind of angst energy going around, and I could feel it, coming to a climax as we got into the holiday season. And I think it might not have just been holiday angst that people were feeling, but perhaps inclusive of things like international news and the election here in the United States. And I don't really feel that much has changed now that we've gone into 2017. Is something I'd like to talk about. As musicians, sometimes we can be quite sensitive to the emotional vibrational fields and just the energy vibrational fields of others. I believe this is also a necessary ingredient for those of us who are improvisers, because although you may not be seeing it here, since it's just me playing essentially alone. This stuff is all background tracks. But I do play with human beings as well, and unfortunately you don't get to see that as often because we don't do live feeds of it. But in order for a band to really function well together, I feel that there must be a certain degree of sensitivity to energies that go beyond just the normal senses that we have in society here as human beings, which is to say, most people are aware when they look at someone and they're frowning that they're unhappy, or when you hear someone laugh or you see a smile that someone's happy. I mean, that doesn't require empathy as a extrasensory perception or anything like that. But the concept of collective improvisation, which is really notable in jazz music, is something that it may not even really be understandable to a lot of just non-musicians, especially living in the States. But it's really part of it. There is a certain vulnerability that you have to have in order to really make it work, and that means trusting all of the other people in this musical organization that you're playing with, and allowing their energy fields to kind of permeate and affect you, and you're going to affect them, and collectively we're all affecting each other. The result can be really great if you trust that process. When you become scared and you don't trust that process is when people have a tendency to just fall back on preconceptions and like licks that they've practiced, and worse would be falling back on gimmickry, or even worse than that would be falling back on tried and true techniques of getting more people to applaud you, which is like squeaking out a lot of high notes, or playing with enormous amount of frenetic energy, ultra loud and chaotic and stuff like that. That sort of breaks the link that musicians need in order for it to really be a collective improvisation, in order for all of us to kind of serve the music. Those kinds of things break that. So when people give in to fear on the bandstand, or even just in rehearsal, it can break the link. And perhaps a great many musicians who don't improvise aren't really aware of this because maybe they've just been taught that this is just a purely physical experience, that all you're doing is just, you're like a factory worker and you're doing this one little job and you're part of this organization, orchestra, band, whatever. And all you have to do is just fit the widgets into like this one little spot, and that's your job, so you're playing a certain instrument in the orchestra, and you read your part and you play your part. You make it sound as good as you can, and then you just forget the rest. There's nothing really in that job description about having this sort of sensitivity to the energy flow that's all going on around you, and sometimes it can even be detrimental to be that sensitive, especially if you're dealing with a lot of angst energy coming from other musicians or the conductor or people on stage in an opera or show performance or something like that. So it's not always going to be that easy for a musician to just open themselves up to, let that energy flow collectively flow through you. But it's there for a reason. It's there because it's supposed to be there. That's why we have these experiences where everything just seems to flow. Some people, it doesn't happen that often. Other people, it never happens. But occasionally, for some of us, it can happen regularly, especially if you have a group that, really is comfortable with each other. Which they can really let all the walls come down and comfortably open themselves up individually for whatever energies come. That also means opening yourself up to the energies of people who are just there to listen, or not even to listen. To open yourselves up to the energies of people who aren't even listening to you. Maybe they're just eating their dinner and drinking, and maybe they're drunk, and all those energies are there. So as musicians, there's a certain degree of strength required, so that being open to that kind of flow doesn't derail you from performing at a high level. And this is all part of the practice. All of this stuff is stuff you do in your practicing. You prepare yourself for that. You prepare yourself for going into a situation where you want to open up to all of the energy flow around you. And maybe it's not all great. Maybe some of it is uncomfortable. And so you're ready for that because you've practiced what it feels like to play under those circumstances. You've practiced being open. And that's part of the dedication of serving music. Serving the musical flow that's been given to us. I'm going to change things up a little bit. I sort of, when I was growing up, I used to play a lot of Latin music, and this is something I haven't done much recently, but I did have to prepare some of it for recent gigs. So this is just something that I put together in order for me to get some practice in on some changes with like a mambo or a salsa kind of groove. The changes here are from a song called Idilio, which I'm not sure who wrote it, but it's I think it's attributed to, and it may have been written by Willie Colon, Idilio. And you're not going to hear the whole Idilio, just the trombone improvisation part of it. That was Idilio. Um, so playing that kind of music, I'm just going to talk a little bit of this, structurally. You could definitely do a lot of study about how to play it, but um, I think in addition to that, the best way I can describe it is you have to play this music with your ass. It isn't a music that you can really play very well if you're playing it with your mind, because it's fundamentally based on dancing. Now, I'm not much of a dancer. I have rhythm, I can move okay, but I don't really understand the forms of dance, and so I'm not much of a dancer, but in a way, I actually dance a lot because to me, the most music that I play has like an inner dance. There's a there is definitely a motion there, and it's a full body motion. Even if I'm actually still, physically still, there's the energy itself and the conception are dance energy. It is. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make any sense on this, but there is dance in I think almost everything that I play, even if it's so-called classical. There is dance in there. Whether it's swing music or this this kind of like Latin montuno mambo feel. There's dance there. So with salsa, there is a specific style of dancing, and there's a specific kind of style of rhythmic articulations, and a lot of that comes from the drums. So if you are a musician who is wanting to explore this kind of style, I would encourage you to pay attention to the way that good drummers play their solos, not just the patterns that they do to create a rhythm feel, but their solos. And if you were for instance, a great drummer who had these tuned drums and you could play all 12 notes, but you were doing so with sticks and with drums, how would you play? And that, in a way, is some of what I'm doing on the trombone. I'm trying to make it sound almost like a tunable drum, you know. Almost. There are certainly aspects of it that I feel are more flowing melodies, you know. But that's just a a little bit of a perspective on playing Latin music, or playing that particular type of Latin music. We're gonna move on to a different one here. Gonna do this is a tune which is a tune that probably I may have played before on one of my feeds, but it's not likely that I've played it recently. And I'm going to do this a little differently than most of the versions out there. This is probably, another kind of Latin music. This is like a bossa nova, but it's slow, And when I play a bossa nova, I kind of like it to be slow. I think a bossa nova sometimes are overdone, the tempo. This is All or Nothing at All. We're almost out of time. That was All or Nothing at All. That's a song that Frank Sinatra made famous. Actually, I'm not sure who composed it. I will look it up. Only got a few minutes, but while I'm looking this up, I want to thank you for joining me. Let me look up this. And I wish that your music will be just as perfect as you conceived it. And remember that it may not make any sense what's going on in the world, but it doesn't have to. We don't have to explain it or fix it or any of that. The music is still here. It's been here all along. It is still available to you and me. And that degree of transformative beauty is proof. It's proof that you're here for a reason, and it's a good reason. And I thank you for joining me. God bless.